This is the new Data Q&A view in Omniscope. It lets you ask questions about your data and get structured, explainable answers. It produces answers in the form of text, tables, charts, and summaries. For this demo, I'm using 3 public datasets: CO2 emissions and energy data from our World in Data, and EV sales from the International Energy Agency. These datasets are related but not perfectly aligned, which makes them a good real-world example. I'm going to connect them to a data Q&A report. The data Q&A view has a chat panel for questions and a result panel for answers. You can choose which AI model to use. Here I'm using GPT-5.2. You can also control how much the model thinks before answering and how detailed the response is. For this demo, I'm keeping thinking low, so answers are fast and direct, with medium verbosity, so they're easier to read on screen. Behind the scenes, I've added a custom system prompt to encourage more visual answers, things like KPIs, line charts, pies, not just tables. By default, the data Q&A view starts with a user message, "Tell me about my data." This helps users understand what data is available before they ask anything. This behavior is fully configurable. You can choose how or if the conversation starts by configuring the initial message behavior in the view settings. Here we have 4 options. Inherit from integration uses the default behavior, which can be configured globally by an admin. Hidden message is a hidden system message which runs immediately, and you'll only see the answer, not the question. This can be useful for executive summaries or automated insights. The system message lets the AI introduce itself or suggest what the user can ask. The AI won't run until the user asks a question. And finally, user message sends a visible user question automatically, where you'll see both the question and the answer. So let's start by asking our first question. I'm going to ask which countries are the worst CO2 emitters per person. Because this is per person and not total emissions, it's a fair comparison. So now we have an answer. Let's have a look at what the AI has given us. At the top, we've got a headline. Here it's told us that Qatar is the worst CO2 emitter per person, followed by Kuwait and Brunei. Below the headline, we have a series of badges. Badges are important. They explain the assumptions and limitations, and they make the answer transparent and not just a black box. The answer itself isn't just text, it includes charts and tables. Each chart has downloadable data, and I can also export images. There are a number of different sections in the results. The answer and question sections are expanded once we have an answer. The activity section can be expanded to show the thinking and the queries that the AI executed. The explanation section can be expanded to show how the AI reached its answer. As an editor, I can choose which sections are shown. If I want, I can just show the answer. I'm now going to ask another question, this time about electric vehicle sales. So this question focuses on growth, not absolute size, and that's important because it highlights momentum. So we've got an answer here, and it's told us that Turkey and China are showing the largest absolute increase. But what's interesting is we can see some of the smaller countries are also showing rapid growth. Costa Rica, Cyprus, Denmark, Estonia, for example. So this is the kind of insight that's hard to get from a static dashboard. So our final question is going to tie the first two questions together and require the AI to look at all of the input data sets. Here we're asking if there's a relationship between CO2 emissions and electric vehicle adoption. So here we can see it's given us an answer. It's telling us 9 of the top 20 CO2 emitters are also in the top 20 fastest EV growers. But it's also told us that there isn't an overlap and a one-to-one relationship. So it's likely that some of the countries in one of the data sets is missing in one of the other data sets. What I like about this answer is that it's being honest. The data Q&A view explains where the data is strong and where coverage is limited. Rather than forcing a ranking, it will explain the relationship and the exceptions. The data Q&A view doesn't replace dashboards, it complements them. It helps you to explore data, understand trade-offs and explain results. And because it shows it's working, it's something that analysts can trust. If you're already using Omniscope, this gives you a new way to interact with your data.